To misquote Sir Alex Ferguson, boxing bloody hell. First Terry Harper and then Kid Galahad, two world title upsets last night as two of our world champions were dethroned. This is After the Bell, Mirror Fighting's boxing show with me, Martin Domin, with former world champion Barry Jones and with boxing journalist Declan Taylor. As I said, two world titles on the line last night, both now leaving the Steel City. Terry Harper stopped on her feet in the fourth round by Alicia Baumgardner in what was, to be fair, an excellent stoppage from referee Mark Lyson. And then Kiko Martinez lost 4 4/5, I counted, of the first 5 rounds, then dropped Kid Galahad, stopped him in the opening seconds of the 6th round with a brutal and stunning knockout. Now a two-weight world champion at the age of 35, which I think means there is hope for us all. Barry, before we come to Kid Galahad, let's take a moment to appreciate Kiko Martinez. Of course, no stranger to British, Irish boxing fans. Been here a lot, but until last night, always coming off second best, but not any longer.
No, well, the thing about Kiko Martinez is he looks very beatable. Like when you watch him, you go, he just piles forward and swings crude punches. But there's more thought to it than that, and also those punches are so heavy that if he remotely catches you, you're in trouble. And and we've seen that in fights gone past. In the Frampton first fight, where he had Frampton in all sorts of trouble, and until Frampton finished him off. And even in the world title fights against Frampton, Frampton had enough respect for him to keep on his toes, to keep moving, not to over engage with him. So but you tend to think his best days were behind him. But I think I've said that about 4 or 5 times about Kiko Martinez. I remember before the Jonathan Romero fight saying, I just think he's hit the dip now. He's on his way down, and then gets that win and puts himself back in the mix again. And he's if ever they should call him the recycle man, because he's just always coming back. And last night he was getting comprehensively beat. He was getting systematically beat up in many ways because he's so physically tough that you can't switch off for a second, and that's all it was. It wasn't even that much of a mistake from Kid Galahad, to be honest. Just the sheer power and will of an old and seasoned Martinez.
It doesn't seem, well, it's not long ago, but it seems like just yesterday, Declan, we were talking about the aftermath of his fight with Zelfa Barrett, of course, and then brought over for this defence, and I don't think anybody was particularly excited about it. Nobody expected much other than a routine defence for Kid Galahad, but, for once, it didn't go to script.
Yeah, it was a bit. He will probably be smiling a little bit because it was a bit of a robbery against Alpha Barrett, wasn't it? Everyone thought that. And he's come over and, like you said there, he's getting beaten up. But I thought he would turn up and I thought that would just go on for 12 rounds and he would get outpointed hugely. But he's so tough. Even at featherweight, he's tough. But it's just, you don't lose your power. And I think he switched off a little bit. Galahad, well, he did, I think. But it wasn't just aimless. And the thing is since he's gone up a bit, and obviously at Super Bantam, he was a different kettle of fish, but he was always slightly small. He was never a big one, tall, height-wise. So those shots, when he gets close and they come from outside of the vision, outside of the eye line, you just always got to be switched on for him. And he's shown him the jab, feinted the jab. It's basic stuff, shown him down the middle, and then it's come around the side. And like Lee Wood said afterwards, he's obviously noticed that Galahad likes to parry, obviously from southpaw. Even an orthodox prefers to parry rather than slip or step back. So he's there, and if his parry misses, if he's parrying that jab, he opens up a little hole. It's just textbook stuff. And it was, a sick enough for Galahad, clearly, and the heartbreak for Eddie Hearn and DAZN and Matchroom, the whole show, really. But it's why we love boxing, I think. And it's weird because on one hand, last week and the weeks before, since this fight was announced, really, there was a lot of criticism, actually, because it's like, well, who wants to see this fight? Kiko Martinez is washed up. He's old. He's not, he's never going to win this fight. This is a waste of time. And it looked like one of those, not a marking time fight, but a first defense, a routine first defense, which would then open the door to big money fights further down the line. Slightly similar in the Terry Harper situation. And so in other sports, you don't get that. You don't really get that. It doesn't happen. There's no context like that in other sports. So he turns up and he does that. And he's obviously floored him heavily at the end of the at the end of the round, and then there's an argument, should he be pulled out at that point? They're like, no, he's fine, get him out there. And literally the first punch does the same thing again. And that is shows you the experience, because he's gone, this guy's not back with it. So that means he's going to eat this one again, just like he did when he was fresh. And it's exactly what happened. And it's just boxing in a nutshell. The drama of it, the heartbreak on one hand, the total elation on the other hand. And I mean, fair play to Kiko Martinez. And afterwards they ask him, are you the best Spaniard ever? He's like, nope. Well, you just got to love him. You just got to absolutely love him.
But what he is value for money. And you're right.
Yeah, every time.
He's good to watch. So he's game and he'll come to fight, and he's he's been a fantastic fighter. But you did tend to think, well, you've already said that this was a good matchmaking for Kid Galahad, because the way I called him a stone cold killer, didn't I? Kid Galahad against Jazza Dickens, his focus and his concentration was just immense, and he was brilliant, and he was good last night as well. To be fair, he was, and I thought he would stop. I sort of predicted he would stop Martinez in 7 rounds. Well, I was a round off and a fighter off, but so yeah, I was totally wrong then. But I felt that was going to be the way. I felt he was just going to systematically beat him up, and Martinez was going to be too slow on the feet and be too naturally small. He boxed super featherweight recently. He's not a super featherweight in a million years. He's gone up weight with age. And Galahad's massive for the weight, so I just thought he was going to be one of those. I really did. But you can't switch off for a second. The right hand, it wasn't the same delivered punch, but it reminded me a little bit of Donald Curry versus Milton McCrory. When he knocked Milton McCrory down, Milton McCrory gets up, and Donald Curry walks straight over to him and went crack. There was no little feint or nothing or disguise. Just walked over, sheer arrogance, and just went bam and knocked McCrory spark out. And that was like that. No, you can't pull Galahad out. He's all over the place when he gets to the corner, but it's a world title fight. You got a minute to recover, 40 seconds to recover, more or less. You've got for a world title fight. You've got to give it, unless he's really bad. You've got to give him every opportunity to recover, of course. And he wasn't quite right, but he wasn't wobbling all over the place. But we wouldn't have known if he recovered, because he went straight out there, Martinez, and did that Donald Curry type thing, to cruise the shot. But I think. Darren Back said he dropped the right hand. It was the backhand. It was the front hand that went down. He went right through the middle with that last shot. And he loops it over the top. He stays low, dips the head, loops that shot over the top, and it went right through the middle. And he was hoping for it hit the floor. It was a showreel finish, that's for sure. Where does he go now? Again, he got fight over here again, won't he? We just got all these British featherweights queuing up now to fight him, or maybe not.
I mean, it does make that Zelfa Barrett win. He got lucky on the scorecards for most people's eyes, but it does make the performance look better, because he had to keep him off and hold him off and box his way. He had some trouble, but then he sort of eased his way back in. And so hats off to Zelfa Barrett. So he's a big puncher still. Kiko, no matter who.
Sorry, that win last night was against the runner play. You have to say that. Yeah. Galahad was dominant. There was always little bits, as the rounds went on. I think maybe the 5th, 4th, and the 5th, where Martinez started to get his range a little bit. It didn't look like anything, but it was going to be a Galahad win. Maybe I would have readjusted my first opinion about him stopping Martinez. I thought maybe like what you thought originally. This is going to go on points, but it looked to everybody that this was going to be, as long as he stayed focused, this was going to be not a comfortable win, but a massive, he would have won every round. That's what it looked like. It was going to happen, to be honest. So it was against the runner play. But that doesn't matter. When you've got power, whatever your strength is, whatever your superpower is. Some people are beautiful boxers and can box you, not outbox you for 12 rounds. Others can't, but they can wear you down. If they can hit you, they can knock you out. And that's what Martinez has. It doesn't matter about the 5.5 rounds or whatever you said, Martin. You worked out mathematically. But it doesn't matter about that, because he has that power. So and again, another world title at his age, and he came over again as an opponent. And I tell you what, it's a weird thing with like Eddie Hearn gets you a world title shot. He's gonna get you beat as well, doesn't he? He's ruined it. He saved British boxing. He's ruined it at the same time. He's
done Mikey Garcia as well.
What's that?
He did Mikey Garcia as well. Doesn't have to be British.
He got a great reputation and a horrible one at the same time. But we lost two world champions on the night. Billy Joe, Callum Smith, like AJ. He's having a great run, but also a terrible run as well. Whichever way you look at it, but it's nice to see. Boxing is a great sport, and that's why we love it. We don't want the British fighters to get beat if we're patriotic, but the great thing about the sport is it's so unpredictable, and that's what makes you want to watch.
You mentioned the weight there, Barry, with Kid Galahad, and of course he was 0.1 over on the scales, and then lost it. You were of a similar size. What does that feel like going into a fight, having had to drain yourself so much? Is that a valid thing to talk about today, or is it sort of reaching a little bit?
It's not. It might be an issue. I'm sure it's an issue. I'm sure making weight's hard for everyone, so it should be to an extent. But he made that choice. So if he's too big, you go to super featherweight. For a small guy, £4 a big deal. That's for big guys, it's not. But it's still only £4. So he would be a big super featherweight. It wouldn't be massive, but he'd be a comfortable super featherweight, Kid Galahad. So that you make that choice, and so you can't use it as an excuse. The weight drained me. Well, the weight drains everybody. Do you think Kiko Martinez at 35 can make 9 stone easy? No, he can't. It's hard for everyone. So some make it. Some have it harder than others. Then come fight time, they have the advantage of being. No, I know the IBF have that rule, and you can put on £10, but I never used to put on £10. Me, I put on like £5-6. So I'd have a disadvantage going into the ring the next night, but I wouldn't struggle as much as my opponent most of the time to make the original weight, and so they're naturally bigger, and you have to weigh it up like that, and there's no excuses. Well, my last fight against Alcino Freitas, he was 11 stone coming in the ring, and I'm 9 stone 6. You know what I mean? But I never struggled to make the weight. I mean, he had a Mars bar at the weigh-in, and he looks like like you haven't had a piece of bread for 6 months. So, and that's so you can't make excuses about making the weight. That's not a valid thing. It's a weight making sport, for God's sake. We all know what we have to do, and if you can't make the weight, you have to go up. And that's just, and it's horrible. You have to lose your title, whatever it is, but you lost your title anyway, so it's irrelevant. So no, it's not. But it might have contributed to him. But he was outboxing anyway. He didn't. Yeah. It wasn't a grueling war of attrition. He didn't look like he might have lost concentration for a second, but he could have done that if he made the weight easy and he was like so full of energy. It happens. So no, I could have just said no, couldn't I? Can we go back? No, it was not a factor.
I'll edit this out. Declan, without taking anything away from Kiko, we've talked about how dominant Kid Galahad was for almost all of the fight. Any indication, any signs of complacency that maybe it was just, listen, everyone's told me this is going to be an easy fight. I believe it's going to be an easy fight. It's been an easy fight so far, so it will be for the next 6 rounds.
I think, I don't know if he'd admit this or not, but I think, yeah, probably, because I don't think it's something you can turn on or off, really. I'm sure he would have spent the whole build-up going, it's Kiko Martinez. He's so washed. I'm so good at the moment. I'm firing. I'm the best I've ever been. There's no chance this guy can beat me. And so straight away, he's going to be thinking differently to how maybe he would have been when he was approaching the Josh Warrington fight, perhaps. But again, I'm just you just guess, don't you? But I guess there probably would have been some complacency. And then when you're outboxing someone so nicely, you know what he's like. He's slick from both stances. He can basically do it all. He's so awkward. He's not really getting hit with anything that Kiko's coming back with anyway. He's probably thinking, I am sweet here. I'm absolutely sweet. And like Barry said, it takes one second, 1/2 split second, and everything changes. But that's the sport that he's in. And that I'm sure there would have been some complacency, but it doesn't really matter. And it's funny because you mentioned Alex Ferguson then. It's like when people used to talk about Fergie time, it's like, well, it doesn't matter. A football match is that long so that there is an opportunity to score at the end. This boxing, there's always an opportunity to chin your opponent no matter how badly you're getting beaten or outboxed or outthought or anything. And I think when you talk about the weight, being weight drained, if he'd looked horrible for 3 rounds and got knocked out, then yeah, but he didn't. He wasn't. I know that gym like to take it to the wire. That's just the way they do it, and there's a lot to be said for that. But there are some drawbacks, and I'm sure he's never comfy at the weight. And as soon as he would be, or if he was comfy at the weight, then Dom would have dropped him down a weight 100%. So I'm not really sure that's a problem. I think it probably was a little bit of complacency, and it just goes on this year's featherweight reel of unbelievable upsets. And
sorry, I was in Leeds on Friday night, and I was with Josh Warrington. I said, "When you fighting next?" And he said, "I'm still waiting to hear the date now. Something's coming." Maybe something he didn't. Maybe he didn't expect this, did he? Maybe it might be this, and that'd be a good thing with Martinez.
Well, I mean, you could make a top 3 upsets of the year out of featherweights in this country alone. It's mad. It's mad, and that's just the beauty of it, and that's the beauty of the sport. And Josh Warrington obviously was on the wrong end of one.
I don't think there was complacency because he was boxing well. He just got caught. That's it. It's almost impossible to go a whole fight without taking a shot, and it's almost impossible without going a whole fight without taking a good shot. It might not be the shot that pushes you to sleep, but we all have to take a shot, and we all have to take some point of the fight, especially in a 12-round fight at that level, a good shot. But unfortunately, a good shot for Martinez is the shot that sort of finishes you most of the time. And that's all it was. That's all it was.
You can't. I mean, I think Martinez barely had his belt around his waist, and then we talk about rematches, as is always the case. If you're Kid Galahad,
don't get Barry started on rematch clauses.
If you're Kid Galahad, do you want the rematch or do you want it next?
Yes, and yes. Based on how the first half of the fight had got, like based on until that first right hand landed, he's going to go, this guy, I'm so much better than him. I'm not going to switch off this time, and I would expect him to win in the rematch 100%. So yes, in answer to your question.
And based on where does he go as well?
Yeah.
Unless he moves up in weight, but then I think he needs that title back to move up in weight because he has no bag and tool. He's a good fighter who's not hugely marketable. Who wants to fight him? Do you know what I mean? You have to do what look what he had to do to get a featherweight title fight. He had to force his way in. He had to physically force his way in to get a title shot against Josh Warrington. Because whether Josh wasn't scared of him, no, of course he wasn't. But it's it's a nightmare. It's going to be a hard, tricky fight either way. And it's not a fight that everyone's clamoring to see. Most of the time, he's been in some good fights actually recently, Galahad. But most of the time, his fights are not always great to watch because he's tricky. So yeah, he needs that title back as quick as possible, or he needs something like that. But yeah, if weight was a factor, if he's going to use that excuse as a factor, and he stays at featherweight, then he's full of it, to be honest. And if he's not, he moves up. But I think if he can make the weight, go back. You got to fight that kid again because you were boxing so well.
Featherweight just a mad division, though, isn't it? Because Kiko Martinez is the champion, Lee Wood is a regular champion, Josh Warrington out in the cold completely. And I was just looking at the dates. Gary Russell Jr. last defended his belt February 2020, which was...
That's soon.
I mean, I know, but you think about that in the context of things, it's, the last time he defended his belt, nobody knew what furlough meant. If you went to Sainsbury's with a mask on, people would have thought you were robbing the place. Like, that's how long ago this geezer defended his belt. Even worse, Leo Santa Cruz, to be fair to him, he's boxed at other weights. He hasn't defended his belt, right? And he's supposed to be out in December, but I don't think there's anything in the book. He's going to fight the winner of Conlon and Wood, apparently. He hasn't defended his belt. In February coming, it will be 3 years since he defended his WBA super featherweight super world champion. That one, the proper belt. 3 years, this guy. And it's like, but then on the other hand, you've got this mad stuff going on with the other belts. It's almost like it's just turned into this hilarious division. But I mean, hopefully,
the only solid one is Navarrete then, really.
And Navarrete is the boy, and like he is always in exciting fight. I'd love, he's one of those guys you would pay to watch because whatever happens is going to be exciting. And I mean, to be fair, it's the same with Gary Russell Jr. and Leo Santa Cruz as well. But let's just worry about what's happening in front of us. And it's been the division of the year, without a shadow of a doubt. What a mad year for it!
And next year,
at least we're not talking about the heavyweights, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's not talk about heavyweights. Let's stay away from heavyweights. But look at next year. No, you could get like Wood and Conlon, and that could be Madison Square Gardens or St. Paddy's Day possibly. Like what a night that is. You know what I mean? To crown a world champion, and it should be the world champion. Lee Wood should be the genuine world champion, shouldn't he? We all agree with that. He beat the guy who was a long-standing defending his version of the belt. Santa Cruz he probably won't fight the featherweight again. Well, he won't, will he? He's not going to make featherweight again. So you can't blame Santa Cruz for keeping hold of it. Why wouldn't you? But there's no credence to his claim for being that champion anymore. And so you have to say that Wood is, and then Wood's got a hard fight against Conlan, and Justice Dickens can get back in the mix. You know what I mean? It's just all sorts of things going on here. We could have there's loads of fights. There's like 6 good fights there next year if they all get their pull their socks up and make an effort.
Moving on to Terry Harper, she suffered the same fate, of course, but a different type of fight. Didn't really look on the ball from the start, I would say.
No, I think, is it Baumgartner? Is that how you pronounce the name? She was slick. I think that's Harper struggled with the upper body movement. The jab was coming from the waist. She just struggled with it completely. She got caught with what was it? A good right hand, I think, a couple of left hooks and a right hand. In a couple of rounds before that, and I don't think she recovered, but there was a bit of a panic about her. To be fair, there was, and she, I don't know if there was something wrong with her. I didn't really hear the interviews or anything, but she wasn't great. But I think that was because of the girl in front of her. She boxed really well, and the lateral movement just caused Harper loads of trouble. And they wasn't the same because she was losing every round. That's the truth of it. And the finish was fantastic. It really was. It was a dip of the shoulder. As she threw a jab, and she almost threw it before Harper threw the jab. It was like she anticipated when the jab was coming, which is great vision and timing. So it almost looks like she throws it. If you watch it back, it looks like she let it go before Harper's thrown the jab. But she's anticipated it. As soon as Harper's made a little move with the left hand, she's gone dip over with the right hand. And you already said earlier on the start of the show, Mark Lyson did a fantastic job. He saved it from a real heavy knockdown. Like a superhero, wasn't he? Diving in the front of the way. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like that. But yeah,
I think what happened with Terry Harper is that was literally her first fight for a year to the month, and she had a bad injury. Before that, I think that was her 14th fight, I believe. Before that, she made her debut in November, actually, 2017. So she'd had 12, 13 fights in 3 years. So she'd been just ticking, not even just ticking over, but winning fight, just climbing the ranks. Very young still. I remember she boxed on the undercard when Kell Brook boxed the Australian guy. So she's just been busily, steadily building, and then it obviously ground to a halt when she gets injured, and she's had a year out. And that performance to me looked like someone who was rusty and was just not quite there on the ball. And when she was throwing her shots, she was getting hit back. She was getting countered. Head wasn't quite coming off the line enough, and just small things like that. And it made a difference. And then, like you said, Barry, she got caught a couple of times pretty hard, hurt earlier on, and she got let off, actually, like I felt. That Baumgartner, at the time, I thought, why is she not jumping on her? There was like 90 seconds left of the round. I think it was a third, perhaps, can't remember. And it was sort of, what's she doing here? And obviously, she just knew she had a number and she wasn't going to rush it. We often talk about stoppages in women's boxing. They don't really happen. She had the opportunity to stop it earlier than she did, and then she actually got that mad stoppage. And it's just like, she didn't waste a single punch in the whole fight, Baumgartner. It was a really, really good performance. She wasn't quite an underdog in the Martinez mold, but she was definitely an underdog with the bookies and brought over as an opponent, as a defense. And she looked class. She looked really, really good. And it's a shame. It's a shame for Harper, but she's young and she'll come again. Hopefully that hand is not something that will really hold her back. Horrible. It's one of those stoppages. Sometimes they're the worst ones. They're the worst ones when you see people laid out on the floor, because she just looks like she's on another planet. And Lyson just saves her from a real big one, which is the real sickener. So yeah, everyone canes referees all the time. So it's so good to be able to say credit to a referee when he does something that is like the sort of reason why these men are, professionals, and why they're the ones who are trusted in there, rather than people who watch boxing and go, this guy's an idiot, and why has he not stopped that, and why has he not stopped? He's that well. His judgment is that good that he was there, and it was.
Are you the union rep? Are you?
I am. Thing is, I'm the worst one for refs and judges. I hammer them all the time, but when you do that, then you have to be able to give them credit when it's due, and that was quality.
Would he do that? Would he do that with Chisora and Parker?
It's a very good question, that, and I thought that myself yesterday. But I think he would. I think he would. Yeah, maybe not if there's a left hook coming from an 18-stone man coming. But yeah, I mean, another hellish, just heartbreak for everyone involved. Unless you release your Baumgartner.
She was on her feet, but she was on an angle like that, wasn't she?
Yeah.
Like leaning forward. And he still is. And we see it on the telly, but when you're in it, sometimes you can get lost in the action. And the reactions of Lyson were fantastic. You have to give him credit for that. You really do. I'm not a union rep, so I don't get any money out of it as you do.
I get paid by him.
I know that, but yeah, he did a good job. Listen, I think our ref, they get a lot of stick, but I think they do a fantastic job in general, to be honest. And that was good. It's a shame for Harper, but again, it's what makes boxing great, isn't it? This girl her life's changed overnight. She might not be a millionaire or anything like that, but she's going to be a world champion now for the rest of her living days, and that and in great fashion. She got away from home, in her mind, in our woman's backyard in the UK. On a big show and outboxed her and hit her with a perfect shot to stop her.
I think there's a different answer to the question that you asked us about Kiko and Galahad. Because it was coming, wasn't it? Would she go straight back for the rematch? I think this is an instance where if I was Steffi Ball, I would be like, let's not bother with that just yet. I would have a rebuild elsewhere myself because she's very young, and that was a beatdown not from start to finish, but for the large swathes of the fight. I would rebuild in a different fashion, and she can always come again, particularly as a woman who sells tickets. It's not like men's where there's no opportunity. She will always get opportunities for belts and all sorts of stuff. She can go up and down, who knows, but I wouldn't go straight back for that one.
So I sort of agree, because usually you'd say once you box at world level, to go back down is a risk, because you go back down and something happens there, then you're there. You're never going back. Unless you're a real marketable fighter, and not ticket seller. I mean TV marketable. You never go back into that again. So there's a risk. But I think with women's boxing right now, it's much better, of course. But there's still quicker routes to a world title, because they haven't got as many fighters. There's not strength in depth anymore. Though the good ones are good, as we seen on Saturday night. But I'm not sure she beats that girl, to be honest. No. But yeah, so I would. Yeah, you're right. I would sort of like have a. I think she can afford to have a rethink, a little time off, and have a couple of one or two warm up type of fights before she goes back.
She's 25. 25. She could do 10. She could do 10 more years. But if she gets beaten again and gets knocked out again, it's a real tough road back. So yeah, sure. I wouldn't. Interesting one though.
Psychologically, it must be difficult. I mean, you talked about Kid Galahad. It's 2 shots, but one that finished it. So he can. It's very simple, if you like. That's what happened. I was winning. Blah blah blah. But with Terry Harper, it must be more difficult to kind of comprehend what went wrong, apart from her not being as good as Baumgartner. But it's just, I imagine it'd be more difficult to process a defeat like that than just a 1-punch knockout.
Well, I'm the perfect man to talk about, because I've been outboxed and beat up in the same fight. No, but I was, but while you're in the fight, you can't understand why. Because if you're meant to be the better boxer or the boxer or the puncher, whatever your role is in that fight, and you can make that work for you, you can't understand why. Or he or she does it better than you, or they can take it, or then that's an issue. And I've been there, and it's a worry. Why is he faster than me? Why is he hitting me? Why is his jab better than mine? All of a sudden, I'm the one who's why is his feet? Why can't I get away from him? Why all these things that you were good at doing against other people don't work against this person, and you can't understand why. And then when you get beat, you haven't got an answer to it. You got to watch it. That's the worst thing. You have to watch yourself. A lot of people say boxing. I don't watch the fight. I don't really watch to analyze myself. That's my trainer's job, and I understand that. But when it's a defeat, you have to see it for yourself to understand it, to accept it, if anything, and that's why. I watched it and just went, that's why he was too good for me in every quarter. And it was horrible, but I had to accept that and you move on. Well, I retired, so I didn't move on. Actually, I'm the worst person to ask. But I think that's it for her. She has to watch it, realise either she didn't do anything wrong and that girl was just too good for her on the night, or there was things she should have done and they all worked out in the camp. But yeah, that's worse than the only thing with the Galahad one. It's you might lose confidence in your chin. Because you've been hurt. You've been knocked out cold, by the way. That's what it was. It said TKO. I don't know where that came from. I read on Boxer TKO. It said that's a clear KO, isn't it? And so I just think that can have a ghost effect on you because you've been knocked out cold. So when you get hit with a big shot, you might panic. I don't know. But the fact that he was boxing so well, you can brush it off as, listen, I just got caught with a good shot. That's boxing.
I feel like Galahad. We've seen, if not the best of him, we've seen something approaching the best version of Kid Galahad that we'll sort of ever see. With Terry Harper, we're nowhere near the best Terry Harper that we'll see. So it's not rip everything up and go. It's just year out. It's young. It's a bit like we had this conversation with Joshua and Usyk, didn't we? It's like, what would you rather happen? You get knocked out or stopped by Andy Ruiz in this stunning fashion out of nowhere, or you get totally outclassed by Alexander Usyk. It's probably the outclassing that's the hardest one to take. It's the hardest one to rebuild from. But I think she's nowhere near her peak, not even close to it. And this is the problem. This is what happens in women's boxing. The context of it is that you get these world title shots and you're a champion before you know it. Really, it's like straight away there. Some people can handle that. Like Savannah Marshall, what was she 8? She got world title in 8 fights or something like that. I can't remember really. And then you're a world champion. Shannon Courtney, the same. You're world champion. It's like, well, then where'd you go from there? But the reality is they're not they're not elite. They're not the best in the division necessarily, but it's just they've got the belt, usually via these opportunities with DAZN and everything else. So I think she rebuilds. I think it's the sort of fight that she could win again in the future, but not next.
Yeah. And also, being women's, but they haven't got even as an amateurs, they're more now to fight different styles and stuff like that. There's not enough fights going on. So that's the style she hasn't come up against before. So yeah, and it might just be that she couldn't adjust in time, but maybe next time she can. But I think that girl might have a number. But Terry's still a good fighter, and I think that is. So I think she can come again, whether it's the same fighter she fights or someone else. But I think she can come again. But I agree with Declan. The original point was, yeah, I think she can take a couple of more fights and she'll be fine.
Elsewhere on the card, Chris Billon Smith is still the European cruiserweight.
Never in a dull fight, that guy. Never in a dull fight.
Barry, I think I saw on Twitter you were impressed with Dante Dixon, who moved to 5-0.
That's a test. Jordan McCrory, I've seen him a few times. I'll give a couple of kids a real good test. You know, he always comes second best against the quality fighters, but in the UK, but he gives him a test. And for Dante Dixon, so early in his career, to fight him, and you can see that McCrory has a real good crack. He has a go, but the way Dixon just never panicked under any sort of pressure he was under, was nice and calm. He got caught with a few shots, which it's not too bad in your career to see a kid take a few shots and how he reacts to it. And he always kept his focus. His variety's good, his footwork's good. I think we got a little future star there. This time will tell. You never know. But everything points to him being a pretty good fighter.
Well, another pretty good fighter. Well, two, I guess. Terence Crawford and Sean Porter in action next weekend. One of us is having a weekend off. It's not me and it's not Barry. So we will be back in some way, shape.
I know another Declan who really knows his boxing.
Don't get him in.
He's
good
brilliant.
Point. I know the same one.
But
we'll cancel your trip, Declan.
Go on.
Go on. I think you're going to say the same as me, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, what's the pick there? Is anyone picking the upset there? We've had a year of upsets. Anyone picking the upset in that fight?
No.
Can I just say something?
Go on.
I'm still the best baddie from the Yemen. Again. Regain my throat.
He's back.
I'm back.
Well, that might be the perfect place to end. Thank you all for joining us. Until next time, do take care.